I left the keys in the microwave. Yeah, that's how scrambled my brain was. Not the junk drawer, not the coffee table, the frickin' microwave. Because I had just spent the last 27 minutes pretending to make chili while replaying a voicemail I wasn't supposed to hear over and over on a burner phone I bought that morning at a gas station 3 towns over. You might think I'm crazy, but listen. When your wife's secret boyfriend accidentally calls you at 3:42 a.m. thinking you're her, that does something to a man. Especially when the first thing out of his mouth is, "So, how do you taste tonight?" I didn't even breathe for a full 10 seconds. My body went completely still, like a raccoon that hears footsteps but already has the sandwich in its mouth. I hung up, replayed it 3 times, and each time it got worse. He kept talking like I was her, like they had done this before, like it was some kind of inside joke. He called me the roommate. He said it casually. The roommate. After 6 years of marriage, I was downgraded to a Wi-Fi sharer with a joint Netflix account. That's why the keys ended up in the microwave. Now, this wasn't some "I've had suspicions for months" situation. I didn't, not even a little. I was the idiot who still brought her coffee in the shower, still texted her dog memes when I knew she was in a meeting, still believed her when she said her phone died in the Uber at 2:11 a.m. after a late event consultation. But it turns out, event consultation is the name of the bar they met at. She wasn't lying. She was just clever. After the voicemail, I did what any overly emotional, undercaffeinated, dramatic man would do. I took a personal day, told my boss I had food poisoning, and created a fake identity named Mark. Mark had a Gmail, a burner phone, and a profile on the same event planning app she used. Within 4 hours, Chloe had matched with me. She didn't even recognize my face in the pixelated profile pic I used, which was just me with a fake mustache drawn in MS Paint. She flirted with Mark hard, said she was trapped in something domestic and craved danger, said Mark looked like trouble. I am lactose intolerant and pay for Spotify Premium. I am not trouble. But Mark was everything I wasn't. Dangerous, mysterious, unavailable. He rode motorcycles and didn't believe in banks. Mark was the kind of guy who probably owned a snake. And Chloe wanted him. By the end of the day, I had a dinner reservation booked under Mark's name at a downtown steakhouse. I even texted her the address. She replied within 30 seconds. "I'll wear the red one," face blowing a kiss. "He's working late, don't worry." She meant me. I was he, the invisible man, the plot device in her romance novel. That's when I knew this had to end. But not with screaming, not with a scene. I was going to give her exactly what she wanted. Freedom with style. So I printed divorce papers, highlighted the signature line in lavender Sharpie, and slid them into an envelope. Then I placed the envelope next to a single Post-it note on the dining table. It said, "Let him know you'll be free next week. I'll handle the papers. The roommate." And when she walked in that night, heels clicking, perfume louder than her conscience, I simply nodded to the envelope. She read the note. She froze, eyes wide, and whispered, "Wait, what?" The weirdest part is it could have all gone unnoticed if I hadn't had a craving for cheese fries at the worst possible moment. 3 days before the Mark dinner setup, before the envelope, before her "wait what" moment that's still echoing in my ears like a cursed ringtone, none of this was in motion yet. At that point, I was still clueless Alex, aka the roommate, playing the role of dependable husband with no idea that my wife was auditioning for a life without me. So here's what happened. It was a boring Monday. Chloe said she had a meeting in Old Port with a client planning a winter wedding. She kissed me on the cheek with lip gloss that didn't used to taste like cinnamon, wore a black jumpsuit that made her look like she owned a yacht, and said she'd be home around 10. I said, "Text me when you're done." She smiled and said, "Of course." She didn't. Around 9:40 p.m., my stomach started doing that sad, hollow thing it does when I skip dinner and try to convince myself that leftover almonds are a snack. I drove out to this 24-hour gas station on Elm just to grab some fries from the attached diner window. Didn't even brush my hair. Wore my hoodie inside out on accident. I look like a raccoon with car keys. While I was waiting for my order, I saw something weird. There was a crumpled napkin on the sidewalk, just outside the passenger door of this matte black Mazda in the parking lot. Written on it in pink Sharpie like the one Chloe keeps in her purse was a phone number and a smiley face, a little heart next to the area code. I wouldn't have cared, honestly. I mean, people flirt. But the car, it looked familiar. Very familiar. The scuff on the rear bumper, identical. The bumper sticker that said "Good Vibes Only" in that fake retro font, Chloe once insisted was actually ironic. Identical. The stupid plastic daisy in the dash, identical. It was her car. But Chloe was supposed to be miles away at a fancy bar planning center with a couple from New Jersey. I pulled into the spot 2 rows behind and waited. I don't know what I expected. I wasn't even thinking clearly. I had cheese fries in my lap and a pit forming in my stomach like wet cement. 14 minutes later, she walked out from behind the gas station. Not the bar, not the restaurant, the alley. And she wasn't alone. He looked smug. That's the only word I have. Like a man who thinks he's earned something he didn't pay for. Tall silver chain, eyes that scan the parking lot like he owned the place. She smiled at him in a way I hadn't seen in years. That crooked half smirk she used to give me when we shared secrets in public. They hugged. She reached for his hand. He leaned in like he was about to kiss her, but she pulled back, glanced around quickly, and that's when she saw me. Not directly. She didn't realize it was me, just someone in a car. She grabbed her keys and practically shoved him back toward the alley, got in her car, and peeled out like she was escaping a crime scene. And maybe in a way she was. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the fries, although they didn't help. I just couldn't make peace with what I saw. Not yet. So the next morning, I tested something. I said, "How was the wedding consult?" She blinked. Slight twitch in her left cheek. That's her tell. "Oh, it was fine," she said. "Ran late. The bride wanted to argue about napkin shades for 40 minutes. I swear, Alex, people are insane." Then she kissed me right there in the kitchen with that same mouth that almost kissed someone else behind a gas station. That was the moment I stopped being the husband and started being the spy. I called the number on the napkin. No answer, but the voicemail, it said, "You've reached Ryan. Leave your art after the tone." Art. Chloe's middle name is Arden. Her old username on Etsy used to be Artie C. Coincidence? Not anymore. So I created Mark. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew Chloe had already crossed the line, and I was going to find out how far she'd gone. There's something devastating about watching someone lie to you while wearing your hoodie. It happened the next morning. Chloe came downstairs humming some stupid song from her mood booster playlist, hair still wet, wearing the old blue hoodie she once stole from me during our second winter together. It had a bleach stain on the left cuff and a rip under the pocket from when we tried to hang floating shelves, and she dropped the drill on me. It was mine, but it was her favorite, said it felt like a hug. Now it just looked like camouflage. She sipped her coffee like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't spent the previous night locked in a whisper behind a gas station with some man who clearly didn't think twice about another man's wife. She kissed me on the cheek again, her new move lately, soft and strategic, and asked if I could pick up oat milk later. I said, sure. But in my head, I was already building the wall between us, one silent brick at a time. She left at 9:16 a.m. Sharp said she had a client consult downtown, but 15 minutes later, I watched her car pull off to the right toward the east side, not downtown, and not even trying to hide it. I decided to stay home from work that day, again. I told my supervisor I was having a personal situation. He didn't ask questions. probably heard the shake in my voice. I didn't care. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we used to play cards and argue about Spotify lyrics, and opened the iPad she always left plugged in behind the toaster. She never thought twice about it. Probably forgot it syncs to everything: her messages, her notes, her browsing history, even her saved playlists. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just following the crack in the wall to see how far it spread. And there it was, a shared playlist, Night Drives with Rye. I don't remember ever creating it. I sure as hell wasn't invited to it. There were 26 songs, all slow, smoky, suggestive. Some I recognized from her shower sessions, others I had never heard. One was literally titled Secret, Subtle. I tapped the playlist details. It was shared with a contact named Simply R. No last name, no emoji, just the letter. Cold, clean, like a hotel alias. Then I noticed something else. There was a voice memo in her notes app titled Draft Art and Pitch. I assumed it was a client thing at first, until I hit play. It wasn't about a client. It wasn't even about work. It was her talking about me. Her voice was soft, like she was rehearsing how to say something painful without sounding like the villain. She said she felt disconnected, that she missed who she was before him. She said she tried to fall back in love but couldn't force it. She said she was waiting for the right moment and didn't want to wreck his heart before Christmas. Christmas 3 weeks away. She was planning to leave me after the holidays, like a seasonal promotion. One final gift wrap before tossing me out like an expired receipt. I should have been angry, furious, smashing plates and ripping photos off the walls, but I wasn't. I sat there in complete silence and felt nothing, like my brain shut off the emotion valve just to protect itself. I made a list instead, bullet points of everything I needed to confirm before I made a move. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about control. So I dug deeper, found cached messages in the browser from a deleted Instagram account under the handle @C_understandsMir. Private, only 12 followers, but enough to track the links to old comments she left under posts from someone named Ryan Hale. I didn't recognize the name, but the profile was public. He was an artist. Street photography, tattoos, gallery shows, moody black and white edits of alleys and rooftops. And in one of his recent stories, a photo of Chloe, not a full-face shot, just her hand. But I'd know that crooked pinky anywhere. She broke it playing dodgeball years ago and never got it reset right. The caption read, "In the wild." My stomach dropped. That's what he called her, Reed. I now had a name, a face, and a date. 2 nights ago, same night as the wedding consult, the pieces were no longer falling into place. They were crashing. I didn't tell her I knew, not yet. Instead, I started setting the table for her exit. Quietly, strategically, just like she was planning mine. I wasn't planning to bring anyone else into this. It was supposed to be between me, Chloe, and the truth. But like everything else in this story, things didn't go the way I expected. It started with a brunch invitation I almost ignored. Chloe's sister Samantha texted me out of nowhere. "Still on for Sunday? Need my Alex fix? Don't flake." I hadn't even realized we were on for anything, but apparently Chloe told her we'd meet at Cafe Bramble. This artsy, overpriced spot where every plate looks like it was arranged by a depressed florist. Chloe wasn't going, of course. She said she had a client shoot in the morning. It sounded real enough until I saw her pack a weekend bag the night before. Throw in her black heels, her red lace thing, and none of her camera gear. That was the moment it hit me. She wasn't waiting until after Christmas to leave. She was already rehearsing what her life looked like without me. So I went to brunch. Samantha arrived late, as always, wearing mirrored sunglasses and a blazer 2 sizes too large, like a hungover art curator. She hugged me, asked how I was. I told her I'd been better, that Chloe was distant lately. She didn't say anything right away, just picked at her avocado toast like it owed her money. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Look, Chloe always romanticized endings. You know that, right?" I blinked. "What does that mean?" She sighed. "She likes chapters, clean breaks. I think she already knows where this is going." I tried to keep my face neutral, trying not to let my hands shake. Did she tell you something? Samantha avoided eye contact, took a sip of her orange water, some citrusy nightmare with floating herbs. Then she said she didn't have to. I saw her at Harbor Square last week. She wasn't alone. I leaned back slowly, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. With who? Samantha hesitated. He looked older, tall, kind of intense, like the kind of guy who brings a sketchbook to a funeral. She said he was a vendor contact. Did they look like coworkers? Samantha gave me a long, honest look. They looked like regrets waiting to happen. That's when I knew. Samantha suspected it. Maybe she didn't have the proof, but she'd seen enough to feel uncomfortable. And in that moment, I realized something else. Chloe's little world was leaking sloppily, carelessly. She wasn't as careful as she thought. I thanked Samantha, told her I needed some time to figure things out. She nodded like she understood more than she let on. Maybe she had her own suspicions for a while. Maybe she wanted me to know. Maybe this was her way of giving me a warning without betraying blood. By the time I left the cafe, my hands were cold and my jaw ached from how hard I'd been clenching it. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at my own reflection in the windshield, and made a decision. I was going to meet him. I didn't know how yet, but I had the name Ryan Hale and the Instagram profile. I spent the next few hours digging. Turns out he had an exhibit scheduled at a local gallery that upcoming Friday. Public opening, wine, tiny cheeses, the whole pretentious parade. I RSVP'd under a fake name, Interglass, business casual, quiet demeanor. I even ordered square-framed glasses I didn't need, just to change my face enough to not be instantly recognized from Chloe's photo albums. Friday came fast. I stood outside the gallery for 5 minutes before walking in. Pardon my throat. Palms damp. I wasn't a confrontational guy. I was the one who avoided customer service calls, who left arguments unfinished because the tension made my stomach hurt. But that night, I wasn't Alex the pushover. I was the man whose life had been hollowed out by secrets and silence. The gallery was dim, full of shadows and half-conversations. His photos hung on matte walls, moody black and white shots of alleyways, fire escapes, and lipstick on cocktail napkins. The kind of images people stared at for too long, pretending they saw more than what was there. And then I saw him, Ryan Hale, leaning against a table with 2 women laughing beside him, sipping red wine, dressed in layered neutrals like some anthropomorphic mood board. I recognized the necklace from Chloe's photo, the little bronze circle. I recognized the tattoo peeking out from his sleeve, the one she described once when she thought I wasn't listening. I watched him for 10 full minutes, not to intimidate, not to start a fight, just to see the man my wife had replaced me with. And he didn't look dangerous. He didn't look charming. He looked ordinary. That almost made it worse, because ordinary men don't seduce married women unless the doors are already left open for them. He wasn't the villain in this story. She was. I didn't approach him that night. I wasn't ready. Not yet. But I knew where he worked now, what he drove, where he parked, what nights he posted from the east side. I was building the blueprints of a man who thought he was invisible. But the spotlight was coming, and neither of them had any idea how bright it was going to get. I could have screamed. I could have punched him. I could have waited for him in the parking lot and introduced his windshield to a tire iron. That's what every movie tells you to do. That's what your friends want to hear when you say, "My wife is sleeping with another man." But that kind of anger burns out fast, and what you're left with is a smoking crater of consequences and nothing to show for it. I didn't want blood. I wanted clarity. So, I made him a cup of coffee. Well, I bought him one. 3 days after the gallery opening, I went to the cafe near the artist co-op where Ryan worked. He wasn't hard to track. Every other photo on his Instagram was geotagged within a 4-block radius. He liked early mornings, oat milk lattes, and using the word liminal unironically. A man of patterns, just like the rest of us. I waited in line behind him at Grain and Vine on Wednesday morning. He ordered a drink with too many syllables and tipped $1 like he was planting a tree. When he turned to leave, I stepped forward, caught his eye, and smiled. Ryan Hale. He looked confused for a beat, trying to place me. Yeah, I extended the coffee I just bought. This one's for you. He didn't take it immediately, just squinted. Do I know you? No, but you know my wife. That did it. His shoulders locked. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look angry. I just held out the coffee like we were two coworkers about to talk numbers. Let's sit. To his credit, he didn't run. Maybe he was too proud or too stunned. Or maybe he thought I was bluffing. We took a seat in the corner by the window. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears, but I kept my hands still, my face neutral. He looked nervous, but not guilty, and that detail mattered more than I expected. You don't have to say anything, I said. I'm not here to make a scene. He leaned back slowly. Okay, then why are you here? I just wanted to see the man my wife whispers about behind locked screens. The one she keeps out of every photo and deletes every message about. The one who posts her hand in your story like it's a scavenger hunt. His jaw twitched. I didn't know she was married when we met. I believed him. He said it too fast not to be true. She didn't tell you? He shook his head. Not at first. I figured it out 2 weeks in. She said it was complicated, that you were separated, that you were controlling? Controlling? That word hit like ice water. Chloe had rewritten the narrative. She hadn't just hidden me, she had edited me into a villain. And in that story, he was the savior, the gentle escape, the man with coffee and candles, not questions and bills. And you believed her? I asked. He didn't answer. I gave a hollow laugh. You know, she told me you were just a vendor, that you were helping her with event lighting for a high-profile client. I'm not even in event production, he muttered. I know. We sat in silence for a moment, the buzz of espresso machines and clinking cups filling the air like static. He looked smaller in person, not physically, but in presence. The man who invaded my life looked like someone who barely knew what door he'd walked through. I'm not going to threaten you, I said finally. I don't have it in me, but I wanted you to know that I see you, that this wasn't a clean secret, that you're not just some fantasy character she pulled from the fog. You're a real person, and so am I. He looked down at his untouched coffee. What do you want me to do? Nothing, I said. You already did what I needed. You told me the version of the story she gave you. Now I get to decide what to do with the truth. He nodded slowly, and I stood to leave. Oh, I added, and for what it's worth, she's not planning to leave me. She's planning to be both people. She's not choosing you. She's keeping you in her pocket until it's convenient to pretend you were a mistake. I walked out before he could respond. It wasn't a victory, it wasn't revenge, but it was a fracture, and that was enough. Because now, Chloe's story had holes. And when people like her start scrambling to patch the lies, they get careless. That's when they slip. Later that night, she came home earlier than expected. Hair curled, eyes bright, acting like a woman who hadn't made any wrong turns. She handed me a bottle of wine I didn't ask for and said, "Felt like you could use a pick-me-up. Long week, huh?" I smiled, played along, because what she didn't know is that I placed a voice-activated recorder under the passenger seat of her car earlier that afternoon. And in less than 24 hours, I would hear a conversation she would never be able to take back. I've never been good at sitting still. Even before all of this, before the lies, the hiding, the coffee shop confessions, I always needed to keep my hands busy. I built things, fixed things that didn't need fixing, reorganized drawers that already made sense. So you can imagine what kind of storm I was in the night after my conversation with Ryan. I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous, not even because I was angry, but because I knew there was a moment waiting for me. A moment sitting on a tiny voice recorder hidden under the passenger seat of my wife's car. And I wasn't ready to hear it, but I had to. She left for a brunch run the next morning early, dressed too nice, full face of makeup for what she claimed was a mimosa egg situation with the girls. I waved as she pulled out of the driveway and smiled like I always did. And she waved back with the same hand that used to reach for mine at night. As soon as she turned the corner, I grabbed my coat, walked down the block, and looped around until I saw her car parked outside Marley's Bistro 5 blocks deeper into the east side than she told me she'd be. And she wasn't alone. Ryan was there again. She leaned against the brick wall outside like she was starring in a music video, laughing at something he said, holding her coffee like it was the most natural thing in the world to be on a date she swore didn't exist. I turned and walked away. I didn't need to watch. I already had what I needed. By noon, her car was back in the driveway. She was inside, upstairs, in the shower, probably humming, probably rinsing off whatever guilt she convinced herself wasn't real. That's when I slipped outside, opened the door to her car with my copy of the key, and retrieved the recorder. Back inside, I plugged it into my laptop, took a breath, hit play. There was static at first, a shuffle, wind, the sounds of her starting the car, the click of her turning the air on, then a phone buzzing, her voice answering, upbeat and soft in the way she never used with me anymore. "Hey you, you're early." A pause. Ryan's voice, distant but clear. "I was just down the street, thought I'd surprise you." They laughed. Small talk, more laughter. Then she said something I didn't expect. "He keeps looking at me like he knows." Ryan asked, "Does he?" "No," she said quickly, "he can't. Alex doesn't have that gear. He's sweet, a little too sweet, predictable. He's the kind of guy who'd still bring me soup if I cheated." That hit like a slap. Not because she was wrong, but because she was right. I had done that. When she came home late and claimed it was cramps or the flu or a migraine, I made soup. I ran baths. I didn't ask questions. But now I had answers. Ryan replied, "You're still planning to end it, right?" There was a long pause. She sighed. "Yeah, after the holidays, I don't want to be the bad guy at Christmas. His mom's already bought matching pajamas." They both laughed again. Ryan said, "I get it, but if he finds out, he won't. He's soft. He believes what I tell him because I say it with a straight face. He still thinks I'm building my business. He doesn't even know I quit my last client 2 weeks ago." I froze. She quit. She'd been lying about working, about where she went every day. I felt something unravel inside me. Like a stitch that had been holding me together just popped, and now everything was spilling out faster than I could stop it. The recording continued. Ryan lowered his voice. "And us." Another pause. "I don't know yet," she said. "Let me get through the holidays, then we'll see what makes sense." It was surgical, detached, like she was planning a furniture rearrangement, not the demolition of an entire marriage. She never said she loved him. That stung too. Not because I wanted her to, but because it meant he was disposable too. I wasn't watching her fall for someone else. I was watching her rehearse freedom. When the recording ended, I just sat there, laptop open, fingers stiff, mind blank. Not angry, not heartbroken, just done. The kind of done that doesn't shout, doesn't slam doors, doesn't make threats. The kind of done that starts collecting receipts and making spreadsheets, that starts thinking about timing and leverage and clean exits. Because now I had her voice on record, in her own words, her own strategy. No denials, no spin, just truth in raw format. That night, I printed a transcript, put it in a sealed envelope, labeled it for clarity. Then I waited. Not for a fight, not for closure, but for her next lie, the one I'd finally interrupt. There's a certain power in pretending not to know. It's like holding a loaded weapon behind your back while the other person dances in front of you, convinced you're unarmed. That's where I was now, no longer the clueless husband, but the audience to a performance that was slowly coming apart at the seams. After I listened to the full recording from her car, I didn't confront her, I didn't rage, didn't sulk, didn't even flinch. Instead, I started building a quiet case behind the scenes. It wasn't about exposing her to the world. I wasn't interested in Facebook announcements or group chat explosions. What I wanted was control, not of her, but of my own ending. For the first time in months, I started thinking clearly. The first step? I made copies of everything. The transcript from the recorder, screenshots of the shared playlist with Ryan, geotagged photos, dates, times. I laid it all out in a spreadsheet, time-stamped, documented. I even included her own words highlighted in yellow under the column stated intentions. It looked like a corporate audit of a failing marriage. Next, I met with a lawyer, quietly. No emails, no texts. I scheduled it from my work computer on my lunch break in a private tab. The man was calm, direct. When I showed him the folder labeled Chloe/proof, he just nodded like he'd seen this kind of thing 100 times. Maybe he had. "She doesn't know, you know?" he asked. I shook my head. Not a clue. She thinks I'm still making her coffee every morning out of instinct. He leaned back. "Then you've got the upper hand. That's rare." We discussed everything. What would happen if I filed now versus after the holidays? What it meant for the house, the finances, even Bishop, our demon cat, who probably wouldn't notice if either of us disappeared. We mapped out a strategy, like a chessboard, piece by piece. And then I waited. I watched Chloe from a distance, even when we were in the same room. The way she smiled down at her phone and tilted it away when I passed. The way she said, "I love you," with a delay now, like she had to remind herself what it used to sound like. It wasn't painful anymore. It was almost theatrical. One night, while we were eating takeout on the couch, I brought up a couples trip we had planned months ago, a long weekend up north in February. She blinked, caught off guard. "All right," she said. "We might have to cancel. I'm still waiting to hear back from that new wedding client." I nodded. "Of course. Let me know when you find out." She smiled, kissed my cheek, got up to throw away her container. What she didn't see was the printer behind her quietly finishing the last page of the divorce paperwork. I placed it on my desk, signed my section, and clipped the transcript to the front. I didn't plan to give it to her yet, not until I had the final piece, and that came sooner than I thought. It was a Friday, cold, quiet. I was working from home when her phone lit up across the room. She'd left it on the coffee table. Rare. A notification popped up just for a second. "Rye, still on for tonight? Red or black?" I didn't even need to see the full message. I already knew what it meant. I'd heard them talk about the red dress before, the one she wore when she wanted to make sure Ryan didn't look at anyone else in the room. That night, she told me she had a networking dinner, said it might run late. I told her to take her time, that I'd probably be asleep when she got home. She looked relieved, genuinely grateful. That stung more than it should have. When she left, I waited 10 minutes. Then I changed, button down, jacket, neutral scarf, the kind of outfit you wear when you want to blend in at a semi-formal bar. And I followed her, quietly, carefully, far enough not to be seen, close enough not to lose her. She went to a place called the Velvet Oak, a sleek little lounge with dim lighting, $16 cocktails, and enough mirrors to make anyone feel watched. I parked across the street and waited. From where I sat, I could see her through the window. She met him at a table near the back, Ryan. They kissed, she laughed, he touched her arm the way I used to when we were still new. She looked alive, energized, like she'd been plugged into something electric and wild. And all I could think was, this version of her was never mine. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. Instead, I sent her a text. "Hey babe, just checking in. Hope the dinner's going well." I watched her look down at her phone, watched her type back, "Hey you blackheart, it's great. Just finished appetizers, heading home soon." She was in the middle of a lie and didn't even blink. That was it. That was the last lie I needed. When she came home later, 3 hours later, smelling like perfume and laughter and someone else's hands, I was already in bed. I didn't say a word. She changed quietly, crawled in next to me, and sighed like life was beautiful. And the next morning, when she walked downstairs in my hoodie again, the divorce envelope was waiting on the counter. A single note on top. "Let him know you'll be free next week. I'll handle the papers." When she read it, her face drained. Her hand trembled. She looked up at me across the room with wide, terrified eyes. "Wait, what?" I didn't answer,
Because the truth doesn't need an explanation, not when it's printed, signed, and sealed. She didn't cry right away. When Chloe read the note, really read it, she just stood there frozen, like someone had hit pause on her entire operating system. Her eyes scanned the envelope once, then again, like maybe the words would rearrange themselves if she stared long enough. They didn't. She looked up at me across the room, the same room where we used to talk about kids and holidays and repainting the walls. Now, all she could manage was a shaky whisper. "Wait, what?" I didn't answer.
Not immediately. I wanted the silence to sit with her, to wrap around her the way mine had wrapped around me for weeks. I wanted her to feel it, the calm, the finality. Then I said, "You've already left. I'm just making it official." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "This is Alex. Come on. You don't. I do." Her hands clutched the counter behind her like she needed it to stay upright. "You're not even giving me a chance to explain." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean lie better?" That stopped her. She flinched like I'd physically struck her. I didn't mean for it to happen this way, but it did. More silence. Then finally, she tried the soft route, the one I knew well, the one that used to work. "I still care about you," she said, voice gentle like a padded hammer. "You're a good man, Alex." I nodded. "I know." Her lips parted like she didn't expect that answer. For once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel lesser. I didn't feel like some beige background character in her chaotic highlight reel. I felt steady. "You don't have to move out today," I said, "but the papers are signed. Just give me your decision by the end of the week." She didn't argue. She just nodded slowly, eyes wet, and went upstairs without another word. The following days passed like fog burning off glass, quiet, uneventful. I started packing little things, old t-shirts, photo booth strips, the framed Polaroid from our first road trip. Some of it I kept, most of it I tossed. Chloe didn't say much. She tiptoed around the house like a guest. Unsure of the rules, she never tried to defend herself again. Maybe because she realized there was nothing left to protect. By Friday, she was gone. She left her key in a small envelope on the table. No note, just the key. And here's the part you probably don't expect. No, I didn't spiral. I didn't become a sad boy in a dive bar or get revenge by dating her cousin or burning her clothes in the yard. What I did was brief. For the first time in a long, long time, I sat alone in a clean, quiet house with a mug of black coffee and nothing buzzing in my gut. I opened the windows, let the cold air in. I booked a solo weekend trip up north, stayed in a cabin near a lake, read books I hadn't touched in years, ate whatever I wanted, slept without checking the clock, and when I came back, I started repainting the walls. Not metaphorically, literally. A fresh coat of deep green in the bedroom, a slate gray in the kitchen. I donated her old art prints, tossed the fake succulents, replaced them with real ones. I started seeing people again. Not romantically, not yet, just friends, neighbors, the barista who remembered my name, the dog at the shelter I'd passed by for years. His name's Charlie now, and he follows me everywhere. The divorce went through smoothly. She signed. No drama. She even sent a text a few weeks later. "I hope you're doing okay. I'm sorry for how I handled everything." I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, just closure. Because I was doing okay. In fact, I was doing better than okay. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was free. And sometimes, that's the real twist ending. Not revenge, not some new love story, just a quiet man standing in his own kitchen holding a cup of coffee, finally truly at peace.